Good morning, paranormal community, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Odyssey Files. I'm your host, Michael O'Neill. With me today, I have a great co-host. Been on the show many times. Love every episode that he's ever on. Paranormal investigator, paranormal researcher, author, and just an all-around amazing person, Mr. Christopher Balzano. And I
How we
hope
doing?
that for the
How we
first
doing?
time, not for the first time, but I know
Not for
that
the
the first
first.
couple of times you were on, I misspoke your last name.
That's okay. It's first of all, not being the first time doesn't make it any less special. But yeah, I was on the news today, yesterday, something like that. I think a few days ago, and I just kept emphasizing to her, "You have one job. Like I know you're going to misquote me. You have one job. Say my name the right way, Balzano." And I'm like,
It's so
seriously, like.
it's so easy to put that E in there instead of the A and
I,
Balzano.
trust me. I teach freshmen, so it's very easy for them to want to make me a bell instead of a balls. But still, although I am the bell
But
of the ball, so there you go.
oh well, I'm gonna that's between you and Florida.
At least I try. So,
Yes, indeed. But I do appreciate you coming on in such short notice.
oh,
Uh,
no problem at all. As you can tell, it's Sunday morning here. You might hear noises in the background. I'm trying to keep it as quiet as possible because we've got laundry going, we've got dishes going, we've got kids cleaning their rooms going. So I've isolated myself as much as I can into the Tripping on Legends studio here, which is really just my dining room table. So hopefully no one hears any of that other stuff.
I have to do pretty much all of those things that you listed, and as I sit here and wonder if any of them are ever going to get done. I
I've
I'd
got
rather.
I've got a 17-year-old and a 21-year-old, and I'm concerned it's probably not going to get done. So
Uh, some people's children, am I right?
I'm with you. I love how I can be sarcastic about him. He's literally 3 feet away from me, but because he's got his headphones in, I can say anything I want. Isn't this why we had children in the first place? So
I thought it was so we didn't have to mow the lawn anymore.
yeah, I live in a gated community now, so I don't have to worry
Oh,
about that. The HOA takes care of it.
nice. I always enjoyed that. So there's one thing that I want to get to before we get to the main topic of the show, and that is obviously the what am I looking for? The lack of Mr. Anthony Hernandez. And I want I need to tell the story, and I don't want to wait for uh, I don't want to wait for him to come back in order to tell this story because it's flipping crazy. So people who listen to the show each week, or multiple, or they come back, whatever. Anthony are always joking about the conspiracy theory type shows, especially when it comes to like Disclosure Day and alien activity and all this other stuff. We had Michael Seelig on, and all these different guests and topics that we choose. We're going to get targeted by the government. Like pretty soon, we're going to be on a list at some point in time because we're going places that usually the government or even just maybe the military doesn't want you to go. And so we talk about how we're not suicidal. So if suddenly we turn up dead, you know, we have no plans to leave to go on vacation. So if we disappear, it's not because we suddenly left home to do anything. So the reason I say this is because what happened to Anthony, as I said, is insane. So last week, I want to say it was either Thursday or Friday. He leaves home to go to work as usual, and he gets a call from his wife saying that their space heater, and they live in Texas, so I don't know what the F they were doing using a space heater in Texas in July. And I post that to him. Apparently, it's just to get a room a little warmer after a shower. I don't know. But apparently the wife heard like a pop and the whole space heater went up in flames. And his house was now on fire. And he sent me pictures of like the fire department and TV crews and stuff that were coming now to his house because it was like burning down. And everybody got out. You know, obviously that was my first question. Is everybody okay? Everybody got out. All the pets got out. He said he had to go in to get one of the pets while the place was on fire, because obviously he turned around and sped back home. But like his office, like where he does the show and everything, completely up in flames. Everything melted. All because of like this space heater, which I might add, he bought because of me. But I have one. Dave has one. My investigator Scott has one. All work perfectly fine. Never had an issue before. And this thing like exploded. And I'm like, no, that's not possible. Well, then obviously him and I were talking about how this is what happens when you're about to do something like maybe they don't like they're going to stop you from doing it. Which is why he hasn't been on in a few weeks, because he's got to replace pretty much his entire house. And so a computer, a microphone, and a monitor isn't exactly a top priority to come back on the show. And so Chris, you use this type of stuff too. So I want your opinion on this aspect of it. So he had an investigation doc. That's crazy. Like, there's no way a space heater, especially when they're only like, it's going to cause that much damage that fast.
Yeah, so, not in the 21st century.
Well, no, exactly.
You know, if you're talking about like one of those old school ones, you know, being from Boston, it's like, you know, 87 deaths a year from space heaters. But like, you know, we're talking like the 1980s one that are running on, you know, gasoline in your house and stuff like that. So,
well, and that was what my thing was too. I'm like, did you have your space heater next to a gallon of kerosene? I'm like, what? Well, apparently they're now saying that it might have been his headphones and a battery that overheated. Now, Anthony is like the best researcher I think I have ever known. Like, he would not buy anything unless it's like the top notch. So I have a hard time believing that a pair of headphones on a charger, which is one of the best made, I don't know exactly what type of headphones they are, but I've owned many headphones, which I keep on a charger, would overheat and burn his house down. What?
Yeah, that doesn't sound kosher, if you will, at all.
Yeah, and so I'll let him, when he comes back, he's going to be back in a few weeks, once he gets everything taken care of. But yeah, like, he's in an Airbnb for like, I think like 6 weeks, and then he's got to go to a rental home for like 6 months while his home gets like rebuilt or whatever. I mean,
good insurance.
Insurance, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, see, I guess according to him, I talked to him last night about it because I wanted to make sure I had his permission to tell the story. But I guess they're like saying like it's all a loss, like it's all being put into a loss. But now they're saying like and this is what I find interesting. They're saying that if it is like a manufacturer's default in like the headphones, that it won't go against him because it's not his fault.
Right.
And I find that so interesting because if there's anything that I know, like like something that is not kosher would do, is they would stop you from doing your thing, but then it would make sure like the fallout from that is as little as possible. Like, it's like, all right, he's about to lose his entire home, but we'll make it so that it's easy for him to get everything back. Now we've achieved our goal.
Or a mysterious benefactor would put everything in order afterwards.
That's right. You get a message from your lawyer or insurance like, we just got an anonymous donation.
A mysterious check just appeared.
Yeah, and look at that. Everything's covered. Yeah, it's really crazy. And I've heard stories of stuff like that happening before, but yeah. So I want to share that. Anthony is fine. Everybody in the house is fine. Nobody was injured. It's just he obviously lost everything. And he once he gets, he actually told me that his work. There you go. Here's your benefactor. The work was going to let him borrow like computers and stuff like that for him to get some of his stuff back as quick as possible. But
yeah, what does he do for a living?
He's in.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you out there about like.
No. It says I don't know if I've ever asked like exactly what he does. He works for a big time company in like security, I want to say. But he's been there like 29 years.
Oh wow!
So I mean, it's not like some intern,
right?
Lost everything. I mean, so big kudos to his company though for letting trying to help.
Totally.
But there's your benefactor right there.
Mysterious benefactor. You have to put the mysterious in front of it.
Somebody in the company wants to help you, Anthony.
So, I've gotten into very, very different than that. I mean, I've had people who have had Men in Black type experiences after they've done episodes or have been researching something. One of the kind of my kindred spirit up in the Bridgewater Triangle, Chris Pittman, left like doing this for years because of these weird experiences and these odd accidents that were going on as he was much more of the UFO side of the Bridgewater Triangle, more cryptid, and I was more of the ghost stories and the urban legends. And he left completely. Thank heavens for me. Kind of the only people I tend to rouse, especially given the fact that I talk a lot of true crime and how it hooks into these ghostly legends, is I've got serial killers and murderers who are contacting my publisher and looking to get mail to me via my publisher because they can't find my address. So I've never had to worry about, as I'm saying that, my son's over there like, what? I've never had to worry about the government. Probably the closest thing to that for me was years ago. I'm talking like 25 years ago. I was driving down the street and I'm listening. I don't even know. I couldn't have been driving because I was in Boston. So I was taking the subway or whatever, and I'm listening to an interview from the governor, who's, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. It's kind of crucial to the whole thing. Who's the guy that ran for president? I'm trying to remember. The guy from Utah, the Mormon.
Oh, Mitch Romney.
Mitt Romney, right? So I'm listening. Who's the governor of Massachusetts, right? And so I'm driving, whatever it was. I feel like I was driving somehow, and I start to go, yeah. Now I'm crazy liberal, right? And all of a sudden I realized, like, oh my word, he's completely convinced me into his train of thought, and it was only like my liberal triggers that were able to be like, no, wait a minute, I don't believe that. And I'm like, this guy is crazy seductive, right? And I'm like, and I was joking. I was on a radio show like 2 days later, and I joked, and I was like, I think Mitt Romney's the Antichrist. And so it was this weird, funny thing that then, like, I was backing it up, right? So then I'm like, all right, I'm going to find all these connections to the apocalypse, and I'm going through religious text, and I'm lining it up. It's all like, cognitive bias. Like he can make anything say anything. But I was creating all of these, like, that says if they'll come from a international thing, and he just got finished being the head of the Olympic Committee, and I'm lining up like the names of his kids and his dog and stuff like that. And I would go on these shows and I would talk and I would say jokingly, like, throw out, oh yeah, Mitt Romney's the Antichrist. Well, then and he was, fairly like a nobody. He was the governor of Massachusetts. But then a few years later, he ran for president. And it was 2012, right? And so it was lining up with the whole Mayan end of the world in 2012. And all of a sudden, I am not even kidding you, I got calls and emails, whatever, from like 30 different radio hosts who were like, dude, remember years ago you were talking about Mitt Romney being the Antichrist? It's like, do you want to come on my show and like lay the whole thing out for everybody? It's like, do you still have him? Like, no problem. And so for a while, I was the go-to guy for the Republicans are going to, lead us into the end of times. And that's probably the closest I've ever gotten to offending anybody in like government positions. I did get a few emails from like members of the Republican Party, but never anything like that I ever felt threatened by.
That's extraordinary. Like,
yeah,
I loved every single part of that story.
Right? Because
I wish I would have known about. Honestly, Chris, I wish I would have known this story before. I would have made the entire show just about this.
Just about, and I would have had to get out my old research that I figured out. But it was like, I'm talking like star references, stuff like that, because once you say something and someone kind of laughs at it and then they're like, okay, we'll prove it. I'm like, dude, for a living I analyze literature and I make connections. Like, I'll totally find some kind of connection and leave out the rest of the part, rest of it and stuff like that. So
I'm only going to ask this one question, then we're going to get to our main topic.
All right, go ahead.
I do want to get, otherwise I would talk about this the entire show. I shit you not. What made you decide that, like, oh, a Republican just convinced me that smaller government is a good idea? That can't happen. Got to be the Antichrist. Like, how did you get from I got convinced about something that I would normally not be convinced about to he's going to end the world?
I'm with you. When you meet someone new and you start talking and then I was like, yeah, man, like, yeah, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden they go, yeah, not to mention, and they throw something usually like fairly racist or homophobic out there, and you're like, no, but like you're in that position where you're already kind of in their groove. And so, like, that's really the position I was in, is that I was saying, like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. What the actual trigger was of what was, like, made me shift my mind. And then I just remember thinking, if there was going to be, like, a true Antichrist, like a true person who is in a negative way going to, like, unify people, they wouldn't be like a screaming like tyrant. They would be someone who is seductive. And I'm thinking of like, Sam Neill, right? In like the third Omen movie, right? That's what we should watch today. We should watch Omen 3. How he just was like friends with everybody, right? And he just had this strength, but this agreeability that like you were agreeing with point 2, 1, 2, and 3, and so 4 just kind of slid in there. And because you didn't know the big picture, it was like, oh yeah, like, okay, like, yeah, sure, I'll vote for you. And then you're like, wait a minute, how did that happen? And so I literally just felt someone who would ultimately like rule in a negative way, probably in today's day and age, like wouldn't get there through fire. They would get there through slick oil and sliding in.
Oh yeah, I fully believe that if, let's just say for the sake of arguing, the Antichrist exists, he would not light the fire himself. He would convince everybody else to light their own.
Right. And it was all very seductive, right? I mean, like that's kind of, if you look throughout, you know, like biblical texts, like the bad guy is always seductive. It's not like, you know, otherwise the good guy would fight them. Right? I mean, snakes rolling up offering apples. I mean, like what's more seductive than a good apple? You know, so
yeah,
you can't let me run loose on this stuff because I can just like go on and on and on about these crazy connections between things like that. So
I'm not.
And back then I didn't have kids and I didn't have 3 jobs. So I had time to like sit around going like, yeah, dude, like what if Mormon are the New Jerusalem? Like, don't they call themselves like the chosen ones? Like, so it would be a Mormon who would do, I mean, you know, now I'm too busy worrying about, you know, how many bagels are in my house. So
I would release this information to the world, but I don't have time.
But I don't have time to think about it anymore. It's kind of like, you know, like people talk about real world politics to me, and I'm like, I don't have the brain power for that, man. I'm trying to figure, you know, this out, and this out while I got this story and this legend rolling around in my brain. And that other stuff, I'm going to have no impact on it whatsoever. I'm just going to stress out about it and cry and post weird videos about it. So why don't I focus on me and like the things that I can actually do? Because I got enough trouble getting that crap out. So, so don't ask me anything about politics or religion or the Vatican.
I'm not going to this time because that's not the nature of the show.
Although I would like to have a little bit of recognition about how quickly I was able to find the title of that book. Like in literally the time it went for you to go to the bathroom, I found an obscure book from the 1980s. And like,
come on,
while I was getting my coffee. I mean, so you have to be impressed with my ability to research things.
I am always impressed with the way you research things. Except now I call into question what you're researching and why.
You know, I've been working on this kind of grand opus called The Swamp Witch and the Town That Was Myth. Mm-hmm. And I've been working on this for probably 6 years now. Yeah, so if you were to ask me right now, like, hey, Chris, we need a, you know, because I write a lot for Arcadia Press. We need a haunted Sarasota book. I'm sure that book already exists. But, like, if we need a haunted Sarasota book, how long would it take for you to put it together? I'd be like, I'll have it to you by Christmas. Like 6 months, that's no problem. Like, I already got some stuff. I know connections to the other stuff. The writing part of something like that is just automatic, right? For me, like I can do that. You know what I'm saying? It'll be really good in 3 months. If you want to give me 6 months, I'll make it as good as I can make that kind of book. This one's been like 7 years. And I discovered, and basically it's a story of a swamp witch who exists in Florida. So for people who don't know Florida, the town now is called Hog Island, right? Which is part of Bushnell, Florida. Anyone who's listening has no idea where those places actually are. But it is next to, it's like the sister city of Brooksville. So some people know Brooksville because Brooksville has like the most haunted place in Florida in it. And it's called the May Stringer House, whatever. So it's like, okay, it's like an hour outside Tampa. Like that's the best, like an hour and a half outside Tampa. That's the best description I can give. And it's all about this swamp witch who haunts this campground. And the story is really about this where this is used to be a town called Pemberton Ferry. And no one in that area remembers the town of Pemberton Ferry, even though it existed less than 100 years ago. Like there are literally people born in Pemberton Ferry that don't remember it being Pemberton Ferry, right? So it's this like weird supernatural or social, right? Like amnesia about it, right? So that there's really like one family that I've connected with who was originally, she heard our episode about Hog Island, called me an idiot. She's like, that's not Hog Island, that's Pemberton Ferry. To tell this story, much like just telling it right now, to tell this story, I have to tell you like 23 other ghost stories, right? So the narrative of it is, I'm telling the story and I wanted to tell you about the ghost, but for you to understand that, I got to tell you about this ghost story that's right next to it. And then I got to tell you this ghost story about it. And I actually have like different hosts that I've had on Tripping on Legends as almost like characters in the story, being like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense, because I've had different personalities who have helped mold what I do, right? The reason why this book is not done, part of it is it's just like, I mean, how do you research something that no one remembers existed, right? But part of it is that every arm of this becomes a rabbit hole, right? So we were talking about, I question what you research, and I find myself trying to tell a ghost story that I've just spent the last 10 hours in a library in some little rinky-dink town in Central Florida researching May festivals. You know what I'm saying? Because somehow that connects to it. So that's, a huge part of why things often move so slowly in the Tripping on Legends and Christopher Balzano world, is that I just become obsessed with the adjacent things. And I think the tangents are what make a good ghost story, because it's always the, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense question that makes people revise their friend of a friend tales. So between that and wanting to get everything right, the history part of things, that's what kind of causes it's not writer's block as much as it is like, nope, I don't have enough information. If you could literally see the files that I have in my room for this one book, it would kind of freak you out.
I don't think so. Because so, all right. Now you brought me back in. We're not gonna talk about theaters whatsoever. I just know it.
All right. Welcome to the Odyssey Files Part 2. Next week we'll talk about haunted theaters.
Yeah, maybe. Even though I'm sure it'll be Part 2 Swamp Witch. But so, because you bring up an interesting, I guess, point of mentality, point of reference for me specifically, because I have been trying for a long time to get people on board with this, and it wasn't until I had Grant Wilson on a few weeks ago where he was like, yes, you're right, I don't know why anybody would disagree with you. So I want this, because you have actually done the research on it, and here's what I'm having a hard time getting people to, I guess, come on board with me for this, is that typical hauntings, let's just say to the mansion that you mentioned, even though I disagree, I think St. Augustine Lighthouse would probably be considered the most haunted.
Sorry, St. Augustine Lighthouse. Oh, wow, I've never heard of that before. Boring.
I know.
Boring.
I wasn't going to
I'm not going to interrupt you on that side tangent, but if you want to come back around to it, we will.
No. That wasn't meant to be a tangent whatsoever. I'm just saying that I disagree with you on that, which is fine. So let me just, as I always do, I use the point of reference, Ghost of Shepherdstown. And then the Ghost. Oh, really?
Yeah. I can't know everything.
Yeah, you can. What's beeping?
What'd you say?
What's the beeping?
Yeah, that's my son finishing his nuggets over there. So, sorry. The government's not going to attack us for this. That was my son finishing his nuggies in the air fryer. So,
gotcha. Wholeheartedly. Okay. All right.
So go ahead. Sorry.
That's all right. So, I'll just say Ghost of Shepherdstown. It was a TV show that Elizabeth St. Nick Groff and Bill Hartley. I think you know Bill, don't you? Bill? No, maybe not. He was from the upper Northwest. But anyway, over the series of the show, they kept getting they were brought in by the city to look at all the hauntings and shit that were going on, and all the calls that would come into the police department that were like, I got this going on, and it was all supernatural. So they kept getting call after call after call to go and investigate this, to go and investigate that, to go and investigate this. And as they were doing so, they kept on finding in histories and stuff like that connections between all of these hauntings. And I guess not to make it so dramatic, but at the end of the show, they realized that there was some sort of demonic entity right there that had been around for like 1,000 years. And he was the one, this demonic entity was the one sending out all of these spirits to distract, to do this.
You shouldn't have told me the ending, because you had me sold. I was like, I don't know or like any of those people, but that sounds like a really interesting show, man. Like I was
really interesting
watching Fringe, so I'm like, I'm all set. And let's, if this is alternate universe kind of stuff too. And then you killed it with the demons at the end. So,
well, it might make sense. They don't even realize it until you can watch everything except the last episode.
There you go.
So, but anyways, that's not the demonic entity has nothing to do with my mentality. My mentality is that hauntings in a specific area are more connected than what we believe. And it's hard for like up here in the Twin Cities, there's like a dozen paranormal teams in like a 50-mile radius. And so if there is a connection between hauntings, but not everybody gets the same cases. So I get case A, C, and F, whereas my buddy Jerry gets B, D and M, and we don't talk about it, and we don't share, and we don't do any of this. How are we ever going to find those connections? But you have gone through and like you found 23 different connections all to this one story that you can't tell without all of these different arms.
So, so at the very beginning, you said, I didn't correct you, but you said paranormal investigator. And I'm like, I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm what I call a reformed paranormal investigator.
Come on.
So what I do now is called legend tripping, right? And part of the reason why I switched was that I didn't feel as if paranormal investigators, and I'm from New England, like we have some really great people up there, but before I moved down here, and the investigators down here not so great, but they weren't asking the right questions, right? It was like gathering all this information and you had blinders on to either your specific case or kind of these cliche foundational things like, oh, it has something to do with demons, or it has something to do with, these things that you're being told on the TV shows or the movies or whatever. And I was like, why is no one asking the questions of like, how are these things connected, right? Or wait a minute, this and this are very similar. What other things do they have? And that, that was just like, that wasn't an attack necessarily on investigators, right? I mean, some of my best friends are investigators, but it was more of this idea of that's not where my mind went, and that's not the way my mind works. And so it was fine to be looking at these individual cases or haunted locations and things like that. And yet people I felt weren't really looking at, first of all, the social impact and the societal impacts of hauntings, of this weird supernatural or paranormal activity that was going on. They weren't looking at like, what does that say about the town? What does that say about the people? But then they weren't making connections, right? And so I kind of split off, and Tripping on Legends, really the primary focus of it are those connections, right? Like we were going to talk about haunted theaters. Like why are all theaters haunted? Like that's a big question that I feel a lot of investigators weren't asking. Like they weren't looking at that big picture, but that's where my mind always went. I think probably a lot of that has to do with the fact that, I went to college to be a writer, And so my degree is in literature and writing. And so literature was all about how does this like book fit in with the framework of the society. So my mind, and I was good at it too, right? Like we were talking about Mitt Romney, like me being able to, it was, so my mind was always in the side of like, how does stuff fit in? What is it saying about things, right? And so with something like the Swamp Witch in the town that was myth, it's very natural for me to all of a sudden be like, okay, these are crazy things that are going on that people are not paying attention to. Why are they not paying attention to it? And why is their sister city, Brooksville, they have like, it's practically a paranormal amusement park. They're making money off of all of their ghosts there. They'll talk about their ghost stories. The two towns began at the same time. Pemberton Ferry was the more successful one. They don't talk about their ghosts in this county. They love their ghosts in this county, and they succeed. That's the question that's been driving me, and I just can't help my mind working that way.
Okay, so I don't do this often, but I'm going to try and defend paranormal investigators.
Okay.
So
keep in mind, I'm not attacking paranormal investigators. It just wasn't for me. But go ahead. You feel like
no, because this goes towards your point, and I love your point because that is a question to ask, and the big picture is not always the one that's right in front of you. But as an investigator, like I'll just throw out a hypothetical here. Let's say my team gets called in to help the Mormon family. I mean, that was their last name, not their actual religion. But since we're talking about Romney, that's good. Help the Romney household.
I know we got a few #Mormon #. Okay, got you. Go ahead, continue.
So we get called in to help in the Romney family, because they have something going on in their house. Like as an investigator, that's my focus.
Yeah,
I'm there to help the Romney family. So what is going on a block away, or in the Smith family household or whatever? I don't. This is going to sound harsh, but that's not my concern. I'm not there to find connections to everything that is around me. I'm there to help the Romney family, and I think, and I agree with you that you could probably understand what is going on at the Romney household if you had the full big picture.
Yeah,
and so I, it as you were talking, I'm like, you're the Castle of paranormal investigating. The show Castle. Yeah, love that show. I've seen every episode like 4 different times. But he was so great because he had the freedom and the mind to see what the goal-oriented, police officers or the investigators in this case were there to see. And I just sit here as you talk, I'm like, I want you on my team. I want you on my team. I want you on my team.
Hey, anytime you want to compare me to any Nathan Fillion character, I am there, so feel free. Yeah, but I think so. To your point, if the Romney family is having this paranormal activity, if they were getting sick, right, mm-hmm. and you were going to be like, wow, but the Smith, which by the way is also obviously Mormon. I know you went random and it fit in. But if the Smith family is also getting sick, then can't we consider that it's not genetic, but it's something with the well water, right? And so that's kind of why those big pictures. Keep in mind, there were other issues that I had, but this was one of the ones that frustrated me. So there is this place formerly called the Seven Sisters Inn in the town of Ocala. You've heard of the Seven Sisters Inn. You've probably watched the episodes of like different shows there, right? And so Seven Sisters Inn is essentially, it used to be an active like B&B. I think it's still an Airbnb now, like an Airbnb, but it used to be like a hotel inn kind of place. And all the 7 different rooms were all designed different because the sisters who had like gone out, had like fallen in love with this architecture, and so they came back, decorated the room, blah blah blah. Once again, considered one of the most haunted spots back in the day before I moved down here. Of that, so there is genuinely, I would say, having collected tons of stories from individuals, a haunted location, right? So it became such a magnet for paranormal investigators that Seven Sisters Inn was just like the place to go, right? There's an episode of Ghost Hunters from there. I know that TAPS had like follow-up investigations because I know some of the members who went in there. And it was it used to be a huge paranormal hotspot. Now it's no longer open to the public, basically, right? Once in a while they'll let someone in. A friend of mine did an investigation there, but pretty much the people who own it now run it as a from the business, and the hotel part's not there. None of those people looked into the whole idea of in that neighborhood there is a heightened number, like crazy statistical number of divorces to other parts of even the town of Ocala on this one street. Teen suicides and mental health disorders, right? None of the people who were looking into that paranormal stuff realized that less than a mile away is this place called Fort King, which really began, if you're in Florida, and if you're not in Florida, you might have never heard of this, what's known as the Seminole Wars, right? So basically, like the Second Seminole War got started when Osceola, hiding in the shadows, like basically emptied his gun into the guy who ran the fort after he went out to have a cigarette. So there's an anti-smoking ad in there somewhere, right? People who are dying in the Second Seminole War were buried in the front lawn, where the front lawn of Fort King is now, right? When the fort was being established, because you got to have this in a good ghost story, they were finding bones as they were building the fort, and they were just tossing those bones aside. So you have what was probably a Timucua burial site desecrated. Then American soldiers were put in there during the Seminole Wars. Then the American soldiers were dug up and they were sent off to be reburied in St. Augustine, right? Everyone who lives in that neighborhood whispers about the fact that there is a curse, that there is something because of all of this crazy stuff that happened at Fort King, whether it dates back to the desecration of the old graves, whether it's just some kind of like pop in the universe because so much death was kind of displayed there. If you ask me, it has a lot to do with the Ocala National Forest in general and these weird, what I call the Ocala slip and time slips that happen there. But none of the people who were going in there were asking the question of going into the Seven Sisters Inn. We're asking, why is it going on though? Like beyond just, and every once in a while I do a haunted tour through downtown Fort Myers, Florida. Every once in a while someone will ask what I think is the right question, which is, why are some places haunted and some people not? Like some places not. Like, why do some people come back as ghosts and some people don't? And it was like kind of neglect of that kind of question. Enough people and more kind of fascinated with the moment. That was part of the thing that kind of pushed me away.
This actually isn't a defense of paranormal investigators because...
Which, by the way, I'm just saying not for me.
Right. No.
Like, I'm not making fun of paranormal investigators at all. I'm just saying, like, that's not what that's not why I got into it, and that's not where my mind goes,
Well, right. And the only reason that I feel like I should respond at all is only because, one, you're right, but we should be asking those questions. And I only say this because I don't either. Like if I was going to go into the Seven Sisters Inn, to me, like there's no client, there's nobody to help. Like you're going in there for the fun investigation. And so like when I do that, I'm under the mentality of who cares? Like I want to talk to them. I would love to hear their stories, but what's going on at the fort down the road isn't a concern to me, because I'm there for one night and I'm not meant to do any good. Like this just seems like, can I see who's there? You know, do they need help in some fashion that I might be able to provide? Like and I don't say this lightly, because to me, I feel like I'm a complete failure as an investigator now. Thank you very much.
No, I know. Well, I mean, I think first of all, you're not, because you're making the clear distinction between like helping someone out in their house and going to a ghostly fun spot, right? And those are two different things, but I think the mentality can really hold up for both of them. Because, I think that, so we were, it's the Samuel West House in Freetown, Massachusetts. So like my first book. And this was, I was well in investigator mode. As a matter of fact, a lot of the, I think, third investigation we did of this house was part of my book, worst title ever, Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting. Good book, horrible title. And the DVD that comes with it, a lot of that is shot in this house. And it was really interesting because when I was initially contacted by this family, their thought process was, it used to be a mortuary, or so like that's the ghosts there are probably from like all of the mortuary house history, right? Like they were really like stuck on that. That was their mindset, right? Dead people had been prepared in this house in the basement. Maybe they had seen the really, really amazing documentary about, haunting in Connecticut, which is still one of my favorite paranormal things. The documentary, not the movie. And I should say the docudrama, I guess, so not the movie. That their mindset was kind of in that. By the way, that's a book that I still was in a dark place. Still a book that freaks me out to this day to read. I have to not read it at night. So anyone who's looking for the best, maybe the best ghost book, In a Dark Place by the Warrens, and I can't remember who the non-Warren person was that wrote it, but it's the basis of the haunting in Connecticut. Anyway, moving on. Then they became obsessed with the idea of the fact that they were in a like retirement community, like right behind them, and that the ghosts were of the old people who were dying. They were calling it kind of like Florida Heaven's waiting room, right? And so many people in this like retirement community were dying. And I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. But why are they coming to your house? Right? Like there's a whole bunch of other places. And what punctured things here? And it's more than just, you were paying attention, right? Why your house and not other houses? And so that really became to help that family. And they weren't being threatened. They were just freaked out. It became like, well, what is the history of this house? What makes this different than other things that are going on? Why is it not your next door neighbor? Why here? And what's the bigger context for what's going on here? And, I don't think we fully solved that. But through a lot of things, we were able to find like tragedy after tragedy in this one place that might have been strong enough to cause some kind of puncture or rift or something like that. Because so many weird, normal, everyday, tragic things had happened in this one spot that maybe it was a magnet. And so I think looking at the big picture part of it helped us as an investigator. I think one of the things that I think investigators need to get over, and they've done a good job of it, is this idea of going in blind so that they can prove their worth by discovering things during the investigation that they wouldn't have known otherwise, right? So I can get it, whatever, if a psychic thinks that. Like, don't tell me anything about a location so that I can prove to you, or I don't want it tainted or whatever, like going in. Although most of the time that's for them to kind of prove that they know things or they can get information. I don't think investigators should think like that. I think investigators should know every single thing there is to know about a location before they go in, and be taking lists of questions they need to ask afterwards and research they need to do afterwards, as opposed to even in a private residence, it being a self-contained investigation.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question on this one, because I have it a little different than what you just described. So I agree with you on knowing all that you can about a location, because that's only going to help you make that connection between what is going on and what has happened in the reality of it. But you know as well as I do, especially when you watch these stinking shows that are talk about the history of a place, how do you tell the difference? I mean, it's taking you 7 years to do the Swamp Witch right now, and still going, because you're trying to get everything right, which is the correct way of doing it. So how do you quickly, because you're trying to help this family, how do you discern between what is actual history and what is conceived history? Because homeowners aren't going to go to the library and do 7 hours of research on their property history. They're either going to ask the neighbors, and the neighbors going to be, oh yeah, Mr. Johnson, 20 years ago, he passed away of a heart. Like, we don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
But the homeowner is going to tell you, though, as if it is.
So I mean, shame on them. Like, they're being like, there's crazy stuff going on in my house, and I'm not going to go down to the town hall and see who owned it before me. Like, all right, well then, like, boo, like you suck. You know, like, I mean, that would be, you know, that's you would do. I mean, I would hope that they would do that before they're like, wait a minute, I know the best question is it's a ghost, and let me call my local paranormal group and have them come down. Like, to me, as a former homeowner, I would want to know, like, what is going on in this place? Like, what was this place? What is going on? Is there anything that explains it? And I would do, you know, like an actual search of the town hall, the town records, of the town tax collector. Like, this is not difficult information to get. And so I would, like, say, shame on you, homeowner. Like, you should have looked into this. And then as an investigator, I would also look into that. So I if you're saying to me 8 years is crazy, 7 years is crazy, but I'm talking about like an entire area, and I'm getting into like the New Deal and stuff like that, and like federal documents. I mean, that's huge. But if you're talking about you as a paranormal investigator, don't like to go into town halls and tax collector records, and then that maybe is a skill that you should develop, right? Otherwise, to me, that I kind of feel like you just like the gadgets. And if you're a gadget person, and that's what you like, and you like the moment of that, and you like the science of that, the pseudoscience of that, I mean, that's just not the way that I would handle things. And I think that you're leaving a lot on the table to not develop those other kinds of skills, because the information oftentimes is out there. In Salem, people always ask me, well, do you spend time in Salem? All of the Salem investigations that I've done have all been private residents in Salem, right? And one of the people I sat down, and they had things that were related to this and not related to this, but they had a list of everybody going back, like, since the house was built. So we're talking Salem. So we're talking, it was at least 150 years that this land was developed. and they had every single person who had owned it, what they had paid for it at that time. They had 3 different newspaper articles talking about things that had happened in the neighborhood, and then specifically the related to the deaths of these 2 little girls like in that house. And I was like, you are awesome. You've done half the work for me. With that in the back of my mind, I don't want to be tainted by it, but with that in the back of my mind, we can start maybe puzzling some of this stuff, like piecing this stuff together. So I think you got to develop that skill.
I agree. You also have to develop.
If they're not doing it, then you should do it, because, you know, to what you were saying, the person who owned that last house I was talking about in Salem, the person who owned it before them was a cop. And the cop refused to talk. When they started to like talk to the cop, be like, hey, have you ever had anything weird happen here? The cop would refuse to talk to them about it. They're like, you bought the house as is. We're not talking about it. So they started asking the neighbors, and the neighbors were like, have you ever noticed that we keep all the blinds on that side of the house closed? Here's what people said happened. And so they had kind of the urban legend, or at least like the idea of like the people's history on this side, but then they also went out and found the actual history. And so with both of those things, it was easier to kind of like look into that place. Do what you want to do. I don't care how you do. Like, you know, we haunted theaters. There was this camp, right? I shouldn't even say it. It's a theater like down the street from me that my daughter is like, you know, practically embedded in the walls. She's in so many things there. And they had posted in a Facebook group, hey, we're doing an adult camp. So this is like the adults come in and they do like fun things like you would have done in camp, right? Is there anyone local who could do like ghost hunting with us? And I was like, I hate the term, but like it's like 5 minutes away from me, right? I'm like, dude, I'm Ella's dad. Like, I've written these books. Do you want me to come in? So I kind of feel like I pissed off a lot of locals because I was like, I leapt over everybody to like get this woman to do it. And so I went in there, and there was maybe like a dozen people, and they were out, you know, they weren't professionals. They were just people who like had watched TV shows, were in a haunted theater. And so they had a bag, the theater, I have no idea why. The theater had a bag of paranormal equipment that they just kept there, right? So they had like 7, you know, cheapo EMF detectors. They had a ghost box there. They had those ridiculous, like, huge things that you point and you hear things, and you got the headphones and stuff like that.
Oh, a parabolic mic?
Right. And I'm like, yeah, like a parabolic. And I was like, we're going to put that aside. And it was like, and I was like, wow, first of all, why do you guys have all this crap? Like, but it was interesting, right? They had a whole night. They had a good time. They learned kind of some of the history of some of this equipment, and so it was educational. And they freaked themselves out because there was a ton of activity that was actually happening in this place. And so, like, that has its place. You know what I'm saying? And I don't discourage that. But if I would not take that seriously as an investigation. Nor do I think that, like, if I had gone in there with the intent of just investigating, that I could have fully gotten in there. Now, if they want to give me free reign to, like, look into a lot more into this place, I know that I already know, like, more connections. But the weird thing is that when you start to talk about that stuff, people, like, tune out, you know, sometimes. And because they want, like, the more flashy stuff. So you really legitimately have to do what you do the way you do it because you really love it. So if you like, and this is to you, but to anyone else, like, if you like the way that you do things, more power to you. Like, it's just not my gig.
I will say this, and then we'll move on to our actual
topic
of it. I do like the way we do things, but I am in no way like uninterested in learning more. Like I
Yeah.
always need to learn more. I can always be better. I can always add to and always want to add to what we do. Because yes, I agree with you that or maybe not even agree with you. Yes, I do,
See my point.
subscribe to.
Subscribe.
Well,
Oh, I
I do
don't.
see your point, but I mean, yes, my goal is always to help the family, help the client figure out or get rid of or stop whatever is going on in their house or business. And I have been, and I due to this conversation, which I both hate and love you for, but looking at, uh, I don't want to say like the surrounding community because that's not, but looking more in depth as to the why.
No.
Because I mean, I always try to find out the who and maybe the why, or at least, but that may be a small aspect of things. And to your point, or I guess to your story about like the retirement home and everybody was obviously passing away in that retirement home and why all the spirits were going to this house. My actual question was, with all of these people dying, would that not attract something a little bit darker and a little bit more powerful than some 89-year-old woman passing away? Like would that not draw in something to take advantage of all of that?
I mean, are you asking me specifically about that or in general? Because
Both.
I'm totally, hip, and I think you need to understand or at least appreciate and accept that it's out there. That there are, whether it's human or non-human, parasitic things that tend to gravitate towards places that people are looking into, right? So, I always use as an example the Lizzie Borden house, which so many people are focusing on what's going on there that if I really wanted to get into that selfie, I'm going to get it. If I'm a ghost and I'm anywhere near there and can travel there, I'm going to go there. Right. And if I'm anything and there's a thing there much darker than Lizzie Borden or anything else. But I think that thing is drawn there because of how many people are paying attention. Right. Where they shot the movie Jeepers Creepers in the Ocala National Forest. The same kind of thing. So many people are going back to that spot, recreating moments from the movie. It's already had crazy stuff going on. Excuse me. People go there and do kind of like a legend trip, right? Like a Bloody Mary type thing. That it just naturally anything dark that can is going to find its way there. So I totally agree with you in the concept of that. And I think that happens all the time. I think when you use a Ouija board or any kind of spirit communication, you are thinking that you are specifically speaking to whoever that you're talking to. But it really could be anybody. Right. And so I think that, and I think when you say darker, I think it can even just be, I'm a lonely guy myself, man. Just like pay attention to me a little bit, right? Like I just want someone to talk to me sometimes. Why not that in the ghost world, right? So even non-nefarious, but just like pathetic ghosts being like, I'm here too. And also darker things that can feed off energy. I think that ultimately in the Samuel West house, I think there were some tragedies that had happened 100 years before that were kind of fed by this weird plane crash that happened right near the property that I felt made it a ghost hotel. Like I think that there was something there because we got, talking about evidence, we got dozens and dozens of EVPs of ghosts talking to each other, including one where an older spirit says to a younger spirit, "Stop talking, they're recording us." Right? Like, which obviously, like, why are you talking to say don't talk, right? Do they not have like that in the ghost world? I don't know. But I think that there was something about the actual comfort level of the people who had lived in that house before them and then them that actually made it inviting. And then there was something about that structure that created a very warm and loving feeling for ghosts. And so I think a lot of in a place that's got to be one of the most haunted spots in the United States, right? The town of Fall River and Freetown, Massachusetts, heart of the Bridgewater Triangle or apex of it. This was like a comfort zone. This was like its own retirement community inside of this house. And I feel like ghosts stayed for a little bit and then they passed on because they would have a lot. And this was part of like asking the question, why are these ghosts only around for, a week or so? And then you seem to have an entirely different set of ghosts that are coming in. Like, that's the kind of like asking other questions. So not just being able to identify, but asking like, why do your ghosts keep changing? And so I hope that answered both parts of the question. Specifically in the Sam West house, it was the context of its like history that kind of gave us this, ghost hotel kind of feel or idea or theory about it. But then I think in general, like, yeah, haunted places, especially haunted places that become the subjects of like legend trips and like a community focus on it. Like, let's all go there and put a stake in the ground at midnight on December 3rd, which was when she died. Like, that ritualistic part, I think, can draw darker things in and stronger things in.
I agree with you on that one. And just 2 quick points to your story. I too have had an EVP where there's a spirit saying the recorder is down on the dresser.
That's
which
awesome.
was accurate. And there's a place here in the city. It's called the Leduc Mansion. Favorite place ever. Probably been there a dozen times. But the first time that I was there, I definitely got the impression that it was like a sanctuary where spirits could go. Like all was welcome. All was welcome. And
all welcome here. All
are welcome here. But we also got an EVP of the daughter singing, and then right as she stops, you hear a man go shh. So there is shushing.
Yeah,
in the spiritual world.
It establishes some kind of like there are rules and a hierarchy and stuff like that, right? Like,
well, I mean, it was her father.
They started talking about that stuff. Oh, it was her. Okay, so he was just.
It was her father.
Okay,
he was like, shh, like don't sing, like they can hear us.
So I'm totally going to turn things on you when you're ready. I'm going to turn things on you, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So the first question is, and I think I know how you're going to answer the first question, but I want to get your thoughts on it a little bit, which is, do you feel as an investigator, right, or however you're approaching it, the more times you go to a place, the more familiar they become with you, and the more they're willing to give you information or give you evidence, for lack of a better word? Or do you think you just learn the location better and investigate it better?
I think a little of both. So, see, again, that is a case-by-case basis. Because you can go to the same place a dozen times and they're all familiar with you, but that doesn't mean they like you.
Right.
So, I mean, if you go...
Who would not like you, Michael? Come on now.
Well, I agree with you on that one. I mean, the living hate me, but I guess come out as an investigator in my team and you'll learn not to like me. But I'll just take the Leduc Mansion for like I said, I've been there probably a dozen times over the last 8-9 years, something like that. I don't even feel like I have to uh, introduce myself anymore. I'm just like, how you guys been? Um, and they know me. But the thing is with that specific place, like they know me, they like me, but they almost came to the point of, yeah, he's here, great.
Yeah.
We don't really need to do anything. But I don't think that's anything against me. I think that's just their mentality. Because they were the owners of the house. This is, they still feel it's their house, which it is. So it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, come on in, let's sit. But I really don't need to give you any evidence. It's good that you're here. I have been to many places multiple times where we're like the only ones in there. And again, I think it becomes more of, we don't need to react to you the way we would somebody that's brand new, or whether we don't like you. Like, we like you, we respect you, we know why you're here. We also know that you're not going to get mad at us if we choose not to give you what you want. And it's true. I mean, I'm never going to leave there and be like, thanks for nothing, assholes. Like, of course not. That's not the way I do things. I don't believe in provoking, so I'm never not going to go.
That was the next thing I was going to say, because it always is these people who, back to the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast, which, by the way, don't go there. Like, don't go there.
I have no plans to.
It's an amazing location, but the company that owns it, I'm in a full-out war with. So I don't want to support them. So don't go. Just like watch old TV shows or listen to episodes about people who have been there. Don't go there. I will pay you to not go there.
I want to go there all of a sudden.
I don't really have any money. So I consider you a crappy book if you want. But the idea of when they weren't getting a response, they would automatically go to, like, we know that you had, that you molested your daughter, Andrew. They would automatically go to the provoking thing. And so I feel like sometimes I watch, and I feel this as like I'm a tour guide, right? Like, I'm a haunted history tour guide. We go through, and there's a certain expectation that people have that something will happen on that, right? And I'm like, I'm going to make it as entertaining as I possibly can, and because I'm going to tell you the stories, because I can guarantee you the story's a really cool story, but I can't guarantee you that you're going to get a picture of something, right? Or that, like, something's going to touch you. So I have to make the story part, be the moment, and hopefully you get the added thing if something happens. And so there's, like, this anticipation of, like, come on, man, show off what you got. Like, I know what you can do. Why aren't you doing it? Like, talk to them, like, scratch them. Come on, man, like, slap them, And I feel like there's a lot of that when a group has been places, like, multiple times, and then they bring someone else with them. I'm not even in, like, a tour kind of way, but in, like, I'm telling you, this is the most haunted place. But it's not responding, and so they feel like they have to hit those buttons, like you were saying with the provoking stuff.
We did just again using the Leduc Mansion as an example, and this actually did happen. But I mean, like, pretty much everybody that I bring, if they're accompanying me into this house or really any investigation, they better treat it with respect. Like that, yeah. I don't make any qualms about that whatsoever. You do not provoke, you do not be disrespectful, that kind of thing. Well, one of my former investigators now, she worked or works probably still at, like, a salon metaphysical store, and a couple of, like, the salon members were, like, witches, like they dabbled in white magic, and it wasn't black magic or anything. They were just, they were interested in that topic. Well, she came to an investigation for the first time in that place right after work, and apparently the Leduc family did not like that.
Oh, wow.
They read that energy off of her. And we had to explain, that's not her, that's from other people. She was just, and they were fine after that. But if there's anything that I know about the family of the house, is that they like harmony. They like good vibes and good energy. and stuff like that. And so, whereas no provoking or anything was done, just the energy of a person is felt by them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that I think that's also crucial. Like, you can go to a place, I can go to the Leduc Mansion 50 times, but if I keep bringing in different people and they all have different energies, I don't think the family is going to relax as much around me as they'll relax around me. They know I'm not going to let anything ever happen, but I think they're always going to be on the lookout of everybody else.
So you feel that they know you so well,
mm-hmm.
and you as you, that like there's a level of trust, and they understand. Like, do you ever get the feeling that they would be like, "Why do you keep bringing people in here, man? Like, what, you know?"
I no, they understand why I'm there. And why I bring different people. I introduce every single person that ever comes in there. I've even told them the last time that I was there, based on this other investigator that had this energy to her, not her fault for it. It's not like she went out and, tried to be a bad person or anything. But I said, I'm like, I would never bring anybody into this house that would ever do anything wrong or be harmful or anything like that. I do believe, so this is coming from, I have a psychic, I have a medium on my team. And for like the first time ever, I allowed her to answer for them. I've been there so many times. I'm like, I don't care about evidence anymore. I'm like, I want to just talk to them. I'm like, so it'd be awesome if I could ask questions and then actually like get an answer, like right then, like have a conversation, but through her, through the medium on my team. And they expressed that like they felt the change in me because something had happened in my life that was, making me a little bit lower of an energy type thing, not bad or anything, just lower. But they knew me so well, like they saw the difference in me.
Like, it would be like if a friend was like, "Hey man, like you seem like a little down today."
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
There was a time it was me and another investigator, and that was it. We're just the only two people in the house. We're doing a special kind of thing. But I had brought it up during this conversation, and their answer was, "We thought you two were together because of the energy that was putting between the two of you. Like, we thought you two were together."
Yeah.
They're even interested in my love life. So I mean, I do love this place, but they're just not very good, or they're just not interested in leaving EVPs and making the REM pod go off and that sort of stuff. And that's fine. I would rather have the relationship than a freaking YouTube clip.
So so have you ever been in a situation where someone an investigative team or an investigator or a psychic wanted to do it, and you were like,
wanted to provoke?
No, wanted to go in there, because you're saying you're very protective of like having the people that are going in there being respectful. Was there ever a situation where you knew someone was not going to be like that and you had to tell them no, they couldn't investigate with you? Or like you had to make some kind of excuse as to why not? Or
honestly, no. Now that has bitten me in the ass. I make it quite clear what I want and what I expect of the people who are with me. Even if I'm running like a small event or something like that, I'm like, this is how we do things.
Yeah.
People will ignore that. We did Dave and I did an event at my team and Dave, I should say, did an event at Farrar Schoolhouse in Iowa. And we split up in groups. Dave took a group and I took a group. And some guy in Dave's group was like, "Come on!" He's like, "Push me down the stairs." And we're, and Dave told me about this later, but him and I were both like, "You flipping idiot! What are you doing?"
Yeah.
You really want to be pushed down the stair? That's gonna hurt.
Right.
So but that's arrogance. But I mean,
and I guess at an event, is different than bringing people in that you trust or you want to.
And this was a hard lesson for me to learn. I mean, it was easy to learn. It was hard at the fact that I had to learn it. The very first home investigation I ever did as Odyssey Paranormal Society was a home in the southern cities. Tons of stuff going on. They had a farm. Their horses were dying. There's a separate garage that they did auto repairs and auto stuff in. Well, there was a documented suicide in that from a previous homeowner that happened in there. I mean, it was unbelievable what went on that night. I had a brand new investigator that I worked with. He was really interested in it. I actually did his home. And I was like, all right, sure. I didn't think anything else needed to be done. Come to find out after the investigation, he decided to go into the garage and provoke the suicide spirit.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know this. It was the last investigation he was ever on. So, I mean, now, and pretty much because of that, I'm like, there's no room, there's no leeway in my rules. Like, you don't do that. And like, if anybody is going to provoke, it's going to be me. You're going to approve of that because nobody's going to take the consequences of it beyond me. And I'm like, and you guys are going to be well aware of why I'm doing it and what I am doing. And you guys are going to have to be like, okay, you can go ahead and do this. But yeah, there's none of that stuff that goes on in my investigations.
Yeah, it's a tough sell because on one hand, you want people who think differently than you in your world, right? Because you don't just want to have someone confirm everything that you say.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
But on the other hand, you have some integrity and you have some like, this is what I do. Part of the problem for me with tripping on legends is I've had 3 really interesting co-hosts. First of all, I've decided that like it's not interesting, it's not fun to go by myself. It's not even really good to do the show by myself, right?
I won't do it by myself either.
Now,
I tried to do that once.
We were always recorded, and then it was when my first co-host left, I felt like I was talking in an empty room, which I was, and so I started doing live shows to at least interact with an audience member. Audience members, although it felt like an audience member at times, just to get like that kind of question, right? Like, and then we just kind of enjoyed liking them. So as I did the other hosts, and each of them has a different personality, and the show is very different with those 3 co-hosts. And my daughter's the 4th co-host; she comes on all the time, especially if we're talking about digital legends or things like that. But one of the things that I've discovered is that there are a whole bunch of people who want to be my co-host or who want to be, who want to go out with me on legend trips, but they don't want a legend trip, right? And they want to do it kind of their way. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm gonna have to be the douche here. That's not what the show is, right? That's not what we do. So, for example, I have psychics all the time who want to be part of the show,
okay.
And I try to tell them because from experience, it just don't work. Like, not that I don't respect you, and I've been, hit or miss with whether I felt they actually had abilities. But like the whole point is that we're tapping into like stories that a community says have been going on for, 100 years or 3 generations or something like that, have been coming to this spot to do this specific thing because it's haunted. And here's the backstory of it. And you want to not know anything about what's going on. Which doesn't work for me because like we're historians as much as we are like paranormal people, right? But then the other part of it is that like I get the name Joe, I'm like, well, there's no history of anything named Joe. So all of a sudden it becomes like either A, like it's an interesting point we can bring up. You think it's Joe, or more often than not, it's like me having to hold back. Well, like, so I'm torn between, saying that you're an idiot or agreeing with you and spitting in the face of 3 generations of people who have been doing this or who have spotted this ghost. And so it's really hard. And almost every person, and a lot of them I consider my friends still and stuff like that, just not right for the show. And then the last person I tried out, she was very much like, well, what I want to do is I want to either heavy evidence type stuff. So can we bring this equipment? And I'm like, you're missing the point of what I do. Or she was like, I think it'd be really good if like I drop a lot of acid and then we went into the cemetery. And I'm like, again, so I actually kind of embraced it, right? Because I'm like, you know what? Like as an investigator, like rule number 1, I don't know, rule something in there. You don't drink and you don't get high on investigations. But like maybe you should do mushrooms and try to connect with the spirit because the legend has something to do with and so it became like selective. And I just realized like, I think he just wants to get high and go to haunted places. So it's really hard to find that balance between ideas that are going to challenge you in the paranormal or methods that are going to challenge you in the paranormal and like your own integrity. Because I've had a lot of people say, for example, like we record everything and we get audio for everything, right? Mm-hmm. And we do that because we are a show, right? So you want to have videos out there to promote the show and whatever. You also want to remember things that happened because, I'm an old man now, so my memory's not as good. And then, like I think one of the most solid confirmation things are EVPs, right? And I spend like literally we listen to it on the way home, and if we don't hear an EVP, like I don't go searching for it anymore, right? And so I've had a lot of people like in the last year say, well, why don't you incorporate divining rods into it? And I was like, all right. I'm like, but honestly, if that makes you feel like comfortable doing it, like it makes you feel good doing it, but like the story doesn't have anything to do with divining rods, right? Like, and they're too easily, people can argue with you. So now I'm getting into an argument over whether A, you're an idiot and a liar, B, you're so easily influenced that you're moving it yourself and are unaware that like that's what's going on. And so once it was like, we're taking focus away from it, which is what is the ghostly legend here? Like we're just narrators of that story. So that's another huge difference between kind of like what I do and what an investigator does. But it's kind of like it often I'm like, am I being a douche? Like, am I being a jerk? Can I say douche on your show? And being closed-minded, or is it like, well, no, like this is what your mission statement is in Tripping on Legends, and so you should keep it like strict to that,
Well, what I'm getting from, especially the last couple people that you had, and I try to make this clear during interviews. I mean, I haven't had to really do a lot of interviews in the last couple of years, so I might not be as good as I was before, but I make no qualms about the fact that I don't do this for entertainment. Yeah. This is entertaining to me. Like I love doing it. I have a lot of fun doing it. That's not our goal. And so many people nowadays and so many teams are formed, and all they want to do is make YouTube videos. All they want to do is bring in the equipment so they can have that instant excitement. Who doesn't love when the REM pod goes off? Who doesn't love when the divining rods, cross or whatever for no reason whatsoever? And what if I go on acid and going to do that, because that would be entertaining for people to see. And
well, wait, hold on a second, really quickly, just so I can say, in her defense, that was her connection to spirituality. So she was not doing it for the shock value of it. She was doing it for I could totally agree with everything you're saying. I just want to make it clear that this was like a huge part of her spirituality and connecting was being on the dope. But okay, continue.
But I'm sure there's people out there who do what I'm sure if you search YouTube, there is a group of people out there that all they do is they get high and then they go in and investigate, because that's what is entertaining to people. And I will bet you they have 1 million views per video because it's just fun to watch high people walk around and scream.
Right. I'm with you.
But
she was not a screamer either. But go ahead, continue.
But I think that it's getting lost over and over and over again is the basic principle of why we do this. You trip on legends because you want that information. You want the history. You don't care about equipment going off. You don't care about screaming in the woods or whatever. You want people to understand what the legend is. Whereas when I go into an investigation, I don't do it so I can get excited when the REM pod goes off. I'll put it out in case they want to use it, the spirits. But if they don't, I don't get upset about it. But I won't let people on my team who want the thrill over doing what needs to be done, which is to help a family, which is to talk and be respectful to the spirits, to achieve that dialogue and that connection. If something happens beyond that, fine. I don't care about that. I don't care if people get excited over the REM pod, as long as that's not why they're there.
Yeah.
And so I think like any co-host that you would get that would be good for you is somebody who believes the history and the information is what is more important than anything else.
Yeah. I think it's even more than that, because I'm usually the one that brings in like the history and stuff like that. A lot of it has to do with I'm looking for, like in a co-host, a few things, and one of them is a clear understanding that something may not happen, and that we can travel hours. But it's about the journey, right? Like, so, and the next thing is, I don't want anyone who doesn't have a sense of awe about the paranormal. So there are so many people, people say to me all the time, what's the scariest place you've been? Like, what is the scary thing that happened to you? And I have to legitimately say, like, I don't scare that easy, and I don't think that something unexplained is scary, because like, if you really want to know, I always say on my tour, I'm only scared of 3 things: ticks, commitment, and spiral staircases, right? Like, that is like my fear. I'm scared of more things, but like, I'm more scared because so many of my legends involve places where they're either well known to the community or are like in the middle of the woods, and both of those things often at the same time. So it's like, if I was going to be a serial killer, here's where I would hang out, and guess what? That's part of the legend. So that element of it is scary, but not the paranormal stuff. But I want people who have a sense of awe, right? Who like legitimately in that moment, like they embrace the moment more than like whether they can prove that ghosts are real. That being I always bring it back to this, having a discussion with 2 people who are now fairly well known in the paranormal world, like with TV shows, but this is like, I'm talking 30 something years ago, right? Like 25 years ago, we're at a conference in Maine with like 5 people in the audience. And they're arguing, like, we're talking as if you just made fun of one of their mamas, right? Like, they're arguing about whether the EVP says, I'm right here, or I'm with deer. And I'm like, can we acknowledge for the fact that like some dude who's not alive is talking to you? Like, there was no awe. They had gotten to the point where it was like, we've done this so much that like we don't really think about the fact that some person is talking to us about from beyond the grave. Like that had lost interest for them, because it was all about usually it was all about with people like proving how smart they am. And so I would never want a co-host who didn't have a sense of awe, and who didn't ask questions and was inquisitive and being like, and being like, that just happened to us. And that's pretty crazy. And now let's look back on like, what does this all mean? So I've had a really hard time finding a co-host that like consistently I can work with. And the show really is about connection, and how the paranormal and how ghosts and a ghost story connects not only people telling the ghost story across a fire, but also entire communities, like trying to understand this crazy stuff that's happening to them. And they feel more comfortable thinking it's the ghost of a widow who's lost her husband than thinking of something else. And so it's really hard to find that combination in people. And it's really kind of boring to do it alone. And so I've had a hard time like keeping the show afloat because I keep losing my co-hosts.
Can I just ask a really quick question?
Yeah.
I'm hoping you can answer this for me. How did we get from can you develop a relationship with spirits to I need a new co-host?
I don't know. Maybe
I don't know how we got here.
Because I think because we're talking about can we communicate with spirits or how can we have a relationship with spirits, and it has a lot to do with the elements that you were putting on the board, right?
Very true.
Yes. So for example, like all of those co-hosts had like a different flair to them. So for example, my first co-host was extremely empathic. Knew nothing about ghosts or anything like that, other than the fact that she liked ghosts. And so the amount of spirits who would connect with us because we were in that sense of awe, right? And we were kind of like in the moment as opposed to trying to capture evidence. We were in the moment. So many stuff was shown to us. Like so many things happened. So many moments we had that we were like catching our breath. My second co-host, very similar. Now, the first co-host, she was not freaked out. That's not the right word. Hesitant, I'll say, to engage in any ghost children. Like being a mother of three herself, she would be like, I would say, here's the thing. And I would start talking about the legend. She'd be like, kid, nope, not doing it. And sometimes on air, it would happen. Like I'd be presenting like, oh, this is a story you should really go to. Whereas the second one loved ghost children. She was a kindergarten teacher. And so I felt there's like a whole string of legend trips we did where we ended up reading to children at these locations where these kids are supposed to be at. And again, like because the vibe was right and the connection was right and the approach was right for each of those people, we had a ton of experiences in those legend trips that we did with them. So I think for me, probably what my mind was going in is like, it's all about how you're approaching it, and developing the relationship has a lot to do with the elements that you're bringing in, which for me is a co-host as well. Because I'm like the observer guy, like I'm like the stone faced, like in the moment, just absorbing everything kind of guy.
There's a theory that I've been trying to put into to work for myself. It was kind of brought up on the show, or maybe before the show or after or whatever. Why can't I remember her name? Kristen Lumen. She's on Ghost Mine and then the A&E version of Ghost Hunters. But she's also like legitimately like a hypnotherapist in her private life. And so she was talking to Dave and myself about comparative energies. And I've been trying to kind of put that into practice about, whether these two or three people put together would create a better connection with spirits than myself and somebody else. And that, so
Yeah.
I mean, and so I agree with you on that one. I mean, when you go out in the field, like, you have to have somebody you can trust, that you can depend on, that you like legitimately like, because as I kind of got the confirmation from the Mary and William LeDuc, they can sense that.
Yeah.
They can sense a closeness, and they can sense that trust, and they can sense your intentions. And so yeah, I wish you well.
So, years ago, I had like I guess I mean, I guess my first legend tripper. I don't know. In college, my roommate and best friend, who her name was Jenna, and she's from Texas, from Arlington. And
I was
so,
just there.
what'd you say?
I was just there.
Oh, were you really? Yeah.
For work. I was only there for 3 hours.
She was actually I think 5 rooms away during the Jeremy incident. If you're a Pearl Jam fan, like legitimately, like she was literally just 5 rooms away from the gunshot. And so her and her best friend became roommates, and one was a Pisces and the other was an Aries, right? And somewhere along the line, someone had told them that you're basically at the end of the horoscope cycle and the beginning of the horoscope cycle. So you guys form a like a complete circle. And that's why so many haunted things happen to you. Now, I'm not sure I believe in astrology, but I always took away from that there are certain elements of people that when they fit together become more of a magnet, right? Like they have, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with, I'm a little bit country, you're a little bit rock and roll, or like you complete me in the way that we think of, like, I like to cook, you do the dishes. I don't think it's like that kind of an obvious thing. Because I mean, so many of my co-hosts have been like mirrors of me in terms of like ideas, but not in terms of energy. And so I've always wondered what that is. And once again, it seems to be, I don't know whether we're making excuses for the ghost, but there seems to be at least some kind of evidence that they are picking up on that, like you were saying, and are more drawn to that kind of completeness.
One of my favorite stories to tell of a former investigator of mine, Lauren. I was putting into effect the partners, because we always was just like, we always switched up. Every investigation was like, who's going to be with who? And then you're like, all right, and you hadn't investigated with somebody for a while. Maybe you get to do that for this investigate, that sort of thing. And then I tried, heard about the comparative energies, and I'm like, well, let's try to put that into effect. And so there are people on my team that had much better connections with certain people than others. And so my investigators, Sam and Haley, have been best friends since high school. Of course they're going to be together. Scott and Cameron, they had like a father-daughter type connection, and very close, very good friendship. Of course they're going to be together. And then that left Lauren and me, and which made perfect sense because she was my other half. And I was trying to tell her about that. I'm like, yeah, you have this and this and this, and I don't. Like you have compassion, you have generosity, and you have kindness, and you have that nature to you of like just being positive and stuff. And I'm more grounded, and I'm the brute, and the wall and the security and stuff like that. I told her, she goes, "Aw, we complete each other." And then she's silent for like 2 seconds. She's like, "In investigations." But
so yeah, I mean, it's like, to be completely blunt, like, I have been in a relationship with every person who has been one of my co-hosts.
Okay.
And so I have often wondered, not necessarily the dynamic on the show, right? Which I think, I mean, the first one, it was always like with Natalie, people were always wondering, like, are they together? Are they not together? Are they together? Are they not together? I'm like, like, literally we posted pictures of us like kissing at like different places that weren't our, like, but whatever. People, like, there was an ongoing debate. And then the other parts, it was like we were, and that was the first one where we were in a relationship, and then we started doing the legend tripping because she was like, you need to get back into things. I don't know. And so, like, all the dynamics were different because every relationship is different, like, on the actual show. Like, you can watch it. There are people who hated my second co-host. And I look back at some of those episodes, and I'm like, no, like, don't you get it? Like, we had this, like, Gemini arguing with each other all the time dynamic. That was very different, but it so works. Like, those are some of my favorite episodes now. But I wondered, I still wonder whether there's something to that relationship, romantic relationship connection that plays itself out in this legend trip. And now, granted, because I'm sure all your listeners and viewers are huge fans of mine, that my first Florida book was Haunted Florida Love Stories, right? So many of our first legend trips were about hauntings throughout Florida that had love as the background somehow. So there was naturally, like, we were couples out there looking into, like, legend tripping, these stories that had love as some element to them. But I wonder now, as I'm looking for, like, someone else to kind of be a host, it's like, I wonder if why things were so successful on so many of these is this idea that we were in a relationship and connected that way. And was there something about that? I'm not going to say sexual tension, because it's like, it's not that, but like something about that connection romantically that actually popped some of these legend trips, Well, go ahead. You're laughing at me, so go ahead, brother.
I'm sorry, but you're like talking about sexual tension, and then you just
and I'm going like this.
It's like, I don't think that's what you're trying to do.
No, but as I'm doing it, I'm like, I gotta stop doing this, but it's so fun. I know what's going on here.
Any other topic would be fine, but it was just doing it with what you were saying. It was flipping hilarious.
I got you. It's the Italian in me. I talk with my hands, and it sometimes gets me in trouble. So.
Okay, continue.
No, I mean, and so I've had a lot of times I've had a lot of men who be like, hey, I'd like to be on your show or be your co-host or something, or we should be work. And it's like, I'm like, no offense. Like, I don't think it's going to work for the dynamic of the show. And definitely, I don't think it's going to work for the legend trip. I'm like, if you want me to show you some haunted places, you want to go out, that's fine. But I think there might actually be, and I'm really just kind of hitting. So, Michael, I feel like I should pay you for this session because I legitimately feel like now looking at things, it seems to be that it was that spark of relationships that maybe kind of fueled a lot of what we were getting out there in the field.
I want to say that I don't know so much about the relationship part as it is the vulnerability. Because obviously, if you're with somebody you're in a relationship with, you're more open to things. Whereas if you're going to go with another,
if it's a good relationship, she is. But continue. Sorry.
Oh, right. But I mean, if you're going on with another dude, you're not as vulnerable. You're not as open to being read and stuff like that as you are with somebody you are in a relationship with. So I mean, I think that also has a lot to do with it. Because I mean, if you're trying to If you have your guard 7,000% up, then spirits are going to wonder what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, why are you trying to hide? Why are you so fearful? You know, what are your intentions? They're going to be far more apprehensive to communicate with you, as opposed to if you were with a girlfriend or a wife.
I think the dynamic doesn't work between two males for the show. In that much of it has to do with, like, let me explore these legends with you, and you find the holes in what's going on, and you ask the questions that I wouldn't ask. And I feel like there would be, and I'm getting in trouble with this. I feel like a man would have a harder time being subservient to that. Like, why do you have to do the story? Like, I just feel like it would be a different dynamic, that it would be hard to be like, why are you condescending me like that and telling that? Whereas, like, it's always been like, I'm not, like, you know, condescending you. I'm bringing these to you, and I want you to give me your fresh perspective on it. And I think actually being out in the field, I think it's a different energy between you know, two buddies who are going out there doing this, and two people who have a feminine and masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree. So with the 8 minutes that we have left, what's your second question?
Well, I feel now we've really gotten off of that the point of what I was trying to say earlier, because I was going to ask you to, once again, not necessarily defend, but maybe explain to me.
Okay.
Like the whole Estes method, right?
Well, the Estes method?
Yeah, the Estes method.
Okay.
How that moves anything in the paranormal field forward. Now, I don't know whether you've done it, whether you're a fan of it, but I'm sure you've either done it or spoken to people who have done it. How does that spiritually, intellectually move anything in the field forward, and is not just either A, look, we just proved that ghosts are real because there's no way I could have gotten this information, or B, it just looks really cool. And it feels like we're doing something active. Because Tripping on Legend is about, like, a lot of times just stopping and being in the moment, and people say you're supposed to be here. Whereas a lot of investigation seems like it has to be active. So, what do you think? Do you do it? First of all, I guess I should ask.
I am trying to start only because I hate the spirit box. Just in general, I use it at the end of every investigation just to see if I can get some information or whatever, glean something from it, find out if we're welcome back, how did they think of the investigation, you know, that sort of thing. Try to get confirmations of stuff we had already done. I will not use it any other time during the investigation because it can be so influential and manipulative to what would then go on in the future. Like, I can't tell you how many times somebody's asked a question and we get like and somebody thinks it said yes or no, and then like the next 4 questions are all about the yes or a no, and then when we listen back to it, it's not a yes or a no at all. So we just wasted that entire time.
Yeah, it's really, with shiny active things, it's really hard in investigative mode to not become obsessed with them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm obsessed with it. And Ouija board's the same way, and like stuff like that, being like, you know, no one uses the Ouija board and goes like, oh wow, we just did it for 5 minutes. It's always like, oh crap, it's been like 45 minutes. Right? Like, and so you're spending a lot of time focused on the equipment, whether it's accurate or not accurate, or flashy or not flashy. You don't even necessarily intend to do it, but people, I'm like, dude, you're in this haunted location. You're all hovered over a little box like this for like 45 minutes of it. Like, that seems like you should kind of put your head up and like check out what's going on over there.
Yeah, I agree.
Continue. Sorry.
So I am not very good at it. The Estes method. Nobody on my team is good at it. But anybody who is good at it says it takes a whole hell of a lot of practice. So we'll get that there. So about a month and a half ago now, something like that. I went to Prague for 2 weeks.
Oh, cool.
For a paranormal type tour, and Grant Wilson and Rhianna Wilson were the ambassadors, so they were there the entire trip, and they did, especially Grant, they did 2 different sessions at different locations of the Estes method, and it was unbelievable. Like, it was crazy how accurate the responses were to the questions, and it was different people asking. And it was the first time I think that I'd ever seen prolonged accuracy to where, whatever was said, the response that came made sense. And sometimes it was right away. Sometimes it might have taken 10 seconds or something like that, but it was for 30 minutes each session. Like, it was pretty dead on.
Yeah.
That's compelling, but I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that the Estes method pushes the field further any more than it was before. I think this is another way of entertainment.
Yeah.
I think it can be used in a good way of getting information, as you were saying, but you have to be good at it, which takes a lot of practice. So you're going to be very bad at it for a while, and then in that case,
why? Explain to me why you're bad at it for a while.
Well, just you don't understand what you're supposed to do. Like, I tried, the last investigation we did was about a month and a half ago. Month ago. It was the weekend after I came back from Prague. We tried it, and I put it on, and I couldn't hear any of the questions, even though I could hear somebody talking. Like, it was, that sort of thing. But by the time that I thought that I heard a word, it was already 4 words past it. And that's the big thing for me is I'm my mind right now is set up to hear everything instead of what's underneath. And so for me to be able to pick out words that I'm supposed to say, it's so difficult for me. And that will take practice. And so I even lifted it off, when I was done, I was like, did anything make sense? Nope. Nothing that I had said made any sense to any question. I've heard the audio from it since, and nothing made sense. And then Cameron tried it, and the only thing, and it wasn't even to a question, it's just all of a sudden, he was just like, hey, Cena's here, who was one of my investigators. That's what he heard. But it was to no question. We weren't asking about Cena. We weren't asking about us. So he too, when he pulled, did anything make sense? Nope. So, I mean, it takes, I understand it's going to take a while to retrain the brain to try and pick things up. Plus, we had it at the wrong speed, which I didn't know what the correct speed was. So we were guessing. So, I mean, it's going to be a journey to try to, and that's just to get it to work properly. Then you have to convince the spirits to actually talk to you and get a spirit that's going to give you information that's relevant to why you're there.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I hate about the spirit box is it's not confined to the location you're at. Spirits from flipping Australia can talk to you through the spirit box. But that doesn't help you if you're trying to help the Romney family. I don't need Ed from the Stanley Hotel. Right.
But how is that method though more localized? You know what I'm saying?
It's not. So, that's what I said. It's not going to move it forward at all.
When people talk about Ouija boards, it was so you won't do a Ouija board, but you'll you'll ask them to do flashlights, and you believe that that person's being honest with you, but a Ouija board, a demon's about to jump in your throat. So if you're opening yourself up to something, you're opening up to something everywhere, right? Or none of it, depending on what you think. So I'm just interested in it, in that I've watched people do it very little though, and was engaged in some experiment. We were actually doing it on a radio show, so I think I was asking questions and he couldn't even hear me in the studio, where he was also deprivated. And I actually can understand the idea of deprivation helping. It's just the combination of those things of like, let's deprive you and then have some other thing going on as well. Like, I actually think just depriving yourself of your senses would be a better connection than just let me just write down stuff that came to me afterwards, or during.
We tried to do that as well in Prague. Grant and Rihanna were trying to teach us what the hell do they call it?
Automatic writing?
No, it wasn't automatic writing, but basically floating. They called it floating. Knew it started with an F. But it was where like you sense your mind or yourself or whatever throughout the location that you were at. Like you tried to imagine it, you tried to see it in your head, and then try and see what you pick up from that. Do you feel a pull of an energy over here? Go over there. That sort of thing. And some people had a much better time at it than me. I really didn't pick up anything, but I think that's more me. That's not something that goes against what they're trying to do. That's on me. Again, more practice. So yeah, to your question, I don't think, at least in the form that it is right now, the Estes method is going to spring us forward into another generation in any way, shape, or form. Is it another method that needs refining? And maybe then, sure. But I think it also has to be maybe better technology. Because right now, like if you use a spirit box, you get all that stuff added to it. As soon as they create some sort of device that gets rid of the I guess maybe you could say the foreground noise as opposed to the background noise, maybe it'll be easier. I like the methodology. But again, I wouldn't put it anywhere except the back end of my investigations. And I don't foresee it right now in its present form being anything other than more entertainment.
Yeah. All right, that kind of answers my question. I mean, once again, I wasn't trying to down it. It was just the idea of like, maybe I'm missing what the connection is, because to me, it just seems like, it seems like an extension of that psychic being like, I don't want to, don't tell me anything about it. I want to be able to confirm things afterwards. And so it, to me, has always seemed like wow, didn't we just prove that ghosts are real because I was saying something that made sense? And so I wasn't seeing like, how is this any better than anything else?
Well, let me just ask you this:
because people are, I've been in this long enough, you've been long enough to see like the trends of like what's the popular stuff, and what the popular approaches are and things like that. And so this has been kind of, I've had people now on my like. Even after I tell them straight out, like, I gave up investigating. I don't do investigating for 10 years. This is how I do it. And they'll still ask me about it and whether I've been to these locations and done it on the tour and stuff like that. And I'm like, whoa, I know the end, but that's okay. I love you anyway.
Right. Yeah. So I need to ask you this question because you've mentioned it a couple of times in the last few minutes. Do we really, at this point, with decades of evidence and claims and stories and everything surrounding it, almost like with the whole extraterrestrial thing, bring it back full circle. Do we really have to sit here and say this is going to prove ghosts are real? Like, how are we still asking that question? I got 1,000 EVPs of voices that shouldn't be there. Am I supposed to be like, how am I going to prove ghosts are real?
I think, and you can tell me being more out there. When I wrote Picture Yourself Ghost Hunting, I might have told you this story before. I contacted it was like probably close to 50 investigators that I knew. And I asked, it was a survey, like a questionnaire. And one of the questions was, why do you do this? And first of all, I think most people really kind of lied on it. But the most because no one's going to be like, because ghosts are friggin' cool, man. Like, I like getting an adrenaline rush when I think, like, no one answered that. And that's like a huge part of, being into the paranormal. It's like, just be honest with yourself, dude. Like, you like to have yourself scared. That's why you're watching horror movies. You're not watching horror movies because you're trying to help people. So the most common responses were A, to help people, and B, to prove that ghosts are real to people who don't believe. Right? And when I'm telling you that overwhelmingly, now, again, my daughter is 17. So we're going to say this was 16 years ago, 7 years ago, 16, 17 years ago. So you can tell me if this has changed. I then asked, the last question is, what do you think? What piece of evidence do you think? This is before AI and all that. What piece of evidence do you think would convince a non-believer that ghosts are real? And every single person's response was nothing other than a personal experience. And I'm like, so you're telling me on one hand that you're trying to prove that ghosts are real, right? You're trying to create that thing so that other people will believe what you believe, right or wrong. But then on the other side of your mouth, you're saying nothing will convince them other than a personal experience. That's a paradox, right? So I'm interested whether that has shifted in the last 15 years, that people, because from what you just said, whether not you, but other people as well. So reach out to your audience, like do a poll or something. How many people are still doing this to prove that ghosts are real, which is different than trying to understand an experience that happened to you, right? Proving that ghosts are real. And then how many of them think that the only thing that will convince a non-believer is to have a personal experience? Because you kind of grimaced on both of those. So I want your opinion, and then I want you to tell me whether you think the trend for people who are in the paranormal has changed in the last 15 years. And when I say these are like respected investigators, they were people who had been doing it. I would say probably half of them were pre-ghost hunters investigators. And the other half were newer at that time. But it was like, it was a pretty good cross-section of seasoned investigators and people who did approach different ways and stuff like that. And to get the same response.
So I could see old timer like investigators saying a personal experience, because we didn't have the technology that we have now. I mean, do I think a REM pod hit is going to ever convince anyone? God, no. But the thing about it is, and I don't necessarily think it needs to be a personal experience as much as them being a part of it. So if I brought in a skeptic, and if we're talking, and again, there's a difference between a skeptic and a cynic. So skeptics can be convinced with less than a personal experience. Cynics, on the other hand, like they're going to have to sit down and have a conversation with Abraham Lincoln, before they're ever going to be convinced, because their minds won't let them. It doesn't fit into their view of what makes the world a reality. So, but I could bring in somebody who has never had a personal experience, doesn't believe in spirits, into, I'll just say the Leduc Mansion, since we keep bringing that up. And nothing happens the entire night. No REM pods go off, no personal experiences. But in the audio, all of a sudden you hear William Luke say, "Hi, John," or, which is what his name, let's just say his name or whoever says his name, says hello. With, "Hello, John Smith," or whatever your name is. I think you show that. I think they're going to, it's going to freak them out for a while, but I think they're going to be far more open to it because they understand that didn't happen. At no point in that time did anybody say, "Hi, John Smith," and now it's there. And they're going to be more open to it. Now you get a cynic, then nothing. Like I said, I think that's probably pretty accurate. And it's going to have to be a profound personal experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that, part of the reason why I don't want to look at your evidence meaning anyone's, is that right, it becomes an intellectual exercise in, can I prove that this could be fake? And so when I say personal experience, if that had happened to me, I would be like, I don't freaking know you, Michael. How do I know you didn't add that voice in afterwards? You're playing with it. You're there at your computer doing stuff. Or, pictures. It's I don't want to ever see a ghost picture ever. Literally. Because you can fake it and then I look like an idiot. And so I have to prove that I can tell that this is a ghost and that is not a ghost. Yeah, okay. And so, regardless of how much you specialize in that. And so, I think that's why people, these investigators who are working towards producing the perfect piece of evidence that would change the world. I think, maybe back in the day, that was a much bigger drive of people. And like I said, I mean, I think that, generationally, we've changed in our view of the paranormal. We are now an entire generation outside of the premiere of Ghost Hunters, which is really that linchpin moment, regardless of whether people want to admit it or not. And so, that's my kids. My kids are, Kobe and whoever people. They are, paranormal, unexplained, BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed Unexplained.
Oh, but
you know what I'm saying? And I love that as entertainment. I think those guys, because they're genuine about who they are, they don't pretend to be something, and then they're not. So it's, I can take it as entertainment. So it's interesting. I'd love to. Maybe I should find out old questionnaire and resend it out to people and compare the responses and see how sociologically we've changed as an investigative or paranormal community in the last 20 years. That'd be cool.
I think you'd get a lot more responses as to make money.
Yeah, but to anyone actually admit that, it's not as if people are entirely, 100% truthful on these things. Oh yeah, no, I've never thought.
Well, then they shouldn't be investigators.
I'm with you, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be honest and say I'm in it for money. I'm trying to get girls, which is hilarious.
Pair of sluts.
I mean, do you know who Jeff Belanger is?
I do.
So we were at this conference. Jeff's a really good friend of mine. And we were at this conference again, 20 years ago. And there was a producer. The guy who produced was the producer, but he wasn't the guy. But he was working for the producer of Survivor, and they were looking to get a paranormal show going. With instead of with sci-fi money, with that big 3 network money. And we're at dinner with this guy, and he's talking, and like I said, he's the representative of the producer, and he said something to the effect of, is there anyone good looking that does this? Right?
Yeah.
And Jeff and I almost instantaneously together were like, no, the reason why we got into this was because we couldn't get girls. Which was, probably somewhat true, but at least it was funny, right? But it was like, no, like this is the outer fringe thing. Like hot people don't do this. And so I think it's hilarious now that it's actually a venue for hot people to get more people into them. Anyway, I think my kids want to see their father at some point today. So.
Yeah, and
so haunted theaters. Yeah, ghosts. Every theater's haunted. There you go. That's the whole show.
That's all we needed.
And cut.
I'm definitely going to have to change the summary for the show.
Yeah, I think so. And we're going to have to do a haunted theaters show eventually. So
I agree. But honestly, it was a great conversation, and that's why I let it continue, because we were talking about good things and things that I think on the backside of being an investigator, things people don't see.
Yeah.
As they look at YouTube clips and they call in the paranormal, like they don't understand like the behind the scenes. And I really wanted to have that conversation. So I let it go.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to come on here and sound like a complete jerk.
And
the way that I approach things.
And now you spent like 25 minutes promoting the fact that you need a new co-host.
Yeah, that was my intention on coming in. Like,
well, granted. So if a new potential co-host wants to get a hold of you, where would they be able to do that?
Well, they can visit www.trippingonlegends.com if there's anyone in the world who still visits a website. Or you can just hit up our social media, Facebook /TrippingOnLegends. Instagram is at Spooky Tripping. If you want to know more about me, just type in Christopher Balzano. You don't have to pronounce it right, to spell it right down there on the thing. You can find my books. You can find kind of some of the projects that I've been working on, things like that. So there's got to be, trust me, I'm out there listening. So if you want to communicate with me, if you want to tell me the ghosts, I'm especially obsessed with the ghostly legends of your area. So even though I might not be able to legend trip them, I want to know the stories of your smaller towns all across the United States. So get in contact with me about those.
There we go. So yeah, that does it for us. Chris will not be back next week unless he wants to. But I do have my buddy Jerry Ayers coming on. We're going to be talking about para-unity and whether that's a myth or not. So yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, you got to cut off right now before I give my thoughts on that. So,
all right. To everybody else, stay healthy, stay safe. We want to see you back here. Everyone have a good rest of the weekend.